So good morning, everyone. I think I've decided what I'm going to start doing is just talking free flow and uploading it to a podcast, calling it an episode, and expecting that it'll probably be something that's just private that nobody will ever listen to, but that nonetheless will hopefully be very therapeutic and also maybe provide me some content for videos, because I'm getting to the point now. I've had some self-doubts creep in. The views are on my videos are pretty much where I expected them to be at this point, or where, you know, the Mr. Beasts of the world will predict your first several videos to be, which is basically nowhere, no views, very little views, very few views. But that's okay. It's been something that I've been wanting to make sure that it doesn't bother me, because I genuinely am loving doing these videos. I really am. I've been enjoying doing it. It's been therapeutic. I've been learning a lot as I do the videos and as I research some of the things to do the videos on. Just the whole process has been a journey, and a therapeutic journey. And I think, even though it's funny, because I feel like I pitch to myself and to a potential audience that my YouTube channel is going to be all about sharing lessons and life tips from a guy who's finally figured it out. And the reality of it is, I think as soon as I started this YouTube channel, I realized that the reason I think I needed to start this channel, why the universe was calling me to start the channel, was because I had a lot more to figure out still. And it's funny, like I've mentioned in other videos, when you immerse yourself in this world of positivity and just good mindset, and you start seeing certain names repeat. Obviously, there's a lot of repeated names in the space. The Jay Shettys of the world, Lewis Howe, Mel Robbins, Ray Dalio, Jim Rohn. There's a lot of repeat names that I keep seeing pop up over and over and over again in my feeds, but the lessons are very different and very applicable. Like I've mentioned in a video before, it seems like the universe sends me what I need when I need it. Something that I've been very excited about lately, that has been helping me get my mindset back to where it needs to be and get the doubts out of my mind, has been lofty questions. I've got a list of about 15 or 16 lofty questions now that I got from a website that I'll probably share on a video at some point, but it's just, even just reading the questions themselves, it's different from reading affirmations for some reason. I think just like, as I was reading the articles and reading about lofty questions in general, it talked a lot about when you read affirmations to yourself, the problems can be sometimes when you say I am statements, then your mind wants to argue with yourself. And I find that to be very true. Every time I said an I am statement, it felt good to be saying it, because I knew I was doing the right thing. But also, every time I said something that I knew wasn't true right now, I am abundant, I am somebody who cares about my health, I had my brain would just start popping in and just saying, or my mind would pop in and say, hey, are you sure about that? You're not really, though. But you don't really love these things and are mindful of these things. And so even though, the exercise of affirmations is to, through repetition, eventually our brain will come to believe that stuff, I think I find the lofty questions more powerful. And the only reason I say that is because I felt the difference when I was saying them. I felt the change in my body. I felt the change in my mindset. It's like my mind didn't want to argue with it. It didn't, because I was asking the question. I wasn't telling my mind something, you know. And I wish, let me see if I can pull out while I'm driving an example, because, so like the first one, why am I surrounded by joy and happiness at all times? I'm not telling my mind, I'm not telling myself that I'm surrounded by joy and happiness at all times. So my mind's not arguing with me. Trust me, my mind will argue at everything, because that's what I've taught it to do all my life. But it's not arguing with me because I'm not telling it anything. I'm asking it. I'm asking, like, yo, why? Why am I surrounded by joy and happiness at all times? You know? Why am I always able to learn positively from any experience that I have? Why? I am a lot. I believe that in my soul. And when I ask the question, I don't think of all the times that I haven't learned positively from an experience. When maybe it would if I told myself I learned positively from I know it. I can tell it right now in my head. As I say it in my head, I am someone who learns positively from every experience. My brain's fighting that right away, immediately. I don't know why. I can't explain. I'm not a brain scientist, but I know my brain is fighting that statement when I say I am somebody who thinks positively. I am somebody who able to learn positively from all my experiences. Go figure. Like I said, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but my brain fights against that. But when I ask the universe and I ask my brain, why am I someone who's able to learn positively? I don't know why I can't say that fucking word today. Why am I someone who's able to learn positively from every experience? Man, I tell you what, that just feels different. Like, I can't explain it. Like I said, I'm not a scientist. I'm just a dude out here trying to figure things out. And like I said, lofty questions have been different for me than affirmations for some reason. I don't know. That's one thing I wanted to talk about today. Another thing that comes to mind to talk about, what else can we just mosey on to from topic to topic, huh? So I was listening to my T-Boy podcast today. If people don't listen to that, that's a fun podcast, and it's a really great way to just get a quick tidbit of some business information in a format that's, man, I tell you what, there's not much more I can't think of a more fun way to get a few tidbits of information from the business world every day and from the investing world. These guys are just great. They make it fun. They have some great banter back and forth. They're a little bit corny, which works well for me. But yeah, it's called T-Boy, the best one yet. They just do a little 20 minute business podcast every day. I highly suggest listening to it. But so anyways, one of the stories that they had on today was about Chili's. Apparently Chili's their profits are up 8%. And they've recovered a lot, and this is the first time they've made a profit in the last 5 years, apparently. And they're recovering from the pandemic. But it was interesting that the way he talked about they did it. The CEO of Chili's went into actual physical Chili's locations and started to try to find pain points and places where they could do better and be more efficient, basically. And so one of the things they found was the metal baskets. I haven't been into Chili's in a long time. I'm more of an Applebee's guy for some reason. I love Chili's. Chili's is probably my next go-to besides Applebee's, but just haven't been there in a while. But so, oh shit, I'm about to blow this light. Oh well. Yeah, nope, good, yellow. So Chili's I haven't been in one in a while, but apparently I do remember that they use these metal baskets for their fries. But apparently these metal baskets are a big pain point for the restaurant. Even though it's been something they've done for years and years and years and nobody's questioned, it's kind of become something they just have to do, even though it didn't make sense, because I guess they were washing, the cooks and the bussers and everybody involved, anybody who had touched these metal baskets couldn't stand them. They just were not a fan. Took a lot of time to wash them, I guess, and just very aggravating. So the CEO just said, so guys, why can't we just dump the fries on the plate beside the food? You know, I get that the basket looks nice and it's a cool presentation, but it's causing us this much pain. Why are we still doing it? It doesn't make sense. So they stopped doing the baskets, apparently. And I guess there's another thing. What else did they start doing? I forget what it was, but there was another thing. The short of the lesson was there was 2 or 3 things that the CEO found in the restaurants that were very simple things that they've been doing for years, and they just simply eliminated. I think another one was where they did shrimp. Saved them $6 million a year as a company, just from changing the way they did shrimp every morning. I guess the guys would come in for hours every morning and spend their time peeling and bagging shrimp. I don't know why. I don't know what the process is at a restaurant that made them have to do that, but apparently there was a better way of doing it. And it took the CEO going in and saying, guys, why are we doing this? And questioning something that they've been doing for years. And so the reason I thought I wanted to talk about it today is because it was a great lesson for life, right? I mean, how often do we get caught up in patterns and ways of doing things over and over and over again because it's just the way we've always done it, you know? It reminds me of the story that, well, how's it go? Grandmother has a recipe for bread, or for a roast, maybe, something like that, that she's been doing for years, and the kids love it, and all the kids just are, you know, I think it's the best bread recipe in the world, and she always cooked it a certain way in a certain pan and everything. And so I guess one of the things she did, though, is she always trimmed off the last inch of the bread or the roast or whatever it is. I'm butchering this story, I know, because I forget what it was, but she always trimmed off the last half inch or inch of a roast, you know? And that's just the way she did it for years. And so her kids, when they took the recipe from her after she passed away, and the kids started doing the recipe, they did it the exact same way as Mom did. And they made it the same way. They used the same pan. They cut off that last inch of the, and then years went by. This bread is just so amazing. It's just been passed down and passed down. So eventually 2 or 3 generations later, one of the kids is doing the bread, and one of the kids happens to ask, I wonder why Nana always made the bread this way, And I don't know, like I said, I butchered this story because the end moral of the story is that, come to find out, the reason why she always cut off the end of the bread or the roast or whatever the hell it was is because that's the size of the pan she had. It's not because it made the roast any better. It's not because it added anything to the recipe. It didn't add anything to the meal experience. It's just because that's what the pan size was. Nobody needed to be doing it. They were cutting off probably an inch of some of the best freaking food they've ever had and wasting it because that's just what they thought they had to do. And like I said, it's that in the Chili's example, I always think is a really good example because that's really what we need to do with our life. And if we don't stop and examine our life every once in a while and really get to looking at what we could do better and why we're doing things and see if they still serve a purpose in our life and a function in our life, then it just doesn't make sense to keep doing it. One of the other examples I always use is saying God bless you. I don't say God bless you anymore to anybody. I don't say Gesundheit. At first, the reason I didn't say God bless you anymore is because I was a staunch atheist, and I decided that, I was going to not say God bless you anymore because it didn't make sense for me, an atheist, to request a God's blessing in someone's life. Be that as it may, that was my original reasoning for not saying God bless you anymore. But it did evolve eventually as I became less of an anti-theist, if you will. Um, I'm still an atheist, but that's not a huge part of my life anymore. I just let people live as they do, so be it. If you believe, you believe. If you don't, it's not my thing, but so be it. Having said that, though, my God bless you ideas evolved. I mean, I got to thinking, like I said, why do we say God bless you when somebody sneezes? I know why we used to say it. There's different theories as to why we used to say it. I think sometimes it was believed to be evil spirits leaving the body, so they were requesting a blessing from someone, I don't know if it was, whatever. Or they believed that maybe your heart stopped momentarily, so they were blessing you and wishing you good luck to get that heart going again. There's just a lot of silly old reasons that we say God bless you that we don't need to say God bless you anymore, right? I mean, it's something that if we really look at it and say, why do we still do this? There's not a purpose. We can say, oh, well, it's nice. It's just a kind gesture. Is it really? It is because we say it is, and it is because somebody says if you don't do it, then it's rude. But why is it a kind gesture? There's not a single other bodily function that we have. If somebody farts, do we say, attaboy? We laugh because it's universally funny, because farts at any age or any time, I think, are just universally funny. There's never been a quiet church or a quiet room that somebody farted in that wasn't followed by laughter. So we can all turn up our noses at it, pardon the pun, if you will, but it is what it is. Farts are funny. But we don't say anything after farts like God bless you. If somebody coughs, or, it should be like if somebody coughs or, has a throat issue, I don't know. If they burp, any of those are more likely to be signs of an actual issue, Coughing could be congestion, could be illness. Sneezing's much more likely to be just an irritation, Burping could be indigestion. I don't know. There's different reasons people do bodily functions, but there's not a single other bodily function besides sneezing that we say something and a response is expected. I don't know. Like I said, I'm rambling now, but that's kind of what this morning drive thing is for, is to just ramble on and assume that maybe I'd get some ideas from, but nobody else would ever listen to. But so anyways, like I said, it just really struck me when I was listening to that T-Boy podcast that really is such a great lesson for life, is that we all need to take the time once in a while to examine what we're doing and how we're doing it and see if it really makes sense in our life, because I'd be willing to bet that most of us have behaviors and actions and things like that just don't make sense anymore. On a higher level, I can think of things, for instance, eating habits that just don't make sense anymore. I'm a runner now. I run a mile a day at least. So it doesn't make sense for me to be eating things that don't help me run better, or don't make me feel better, or that are going to make me feel worse when I run. And I'm still eating a lot of that stuff, It's getting better, but it's still something I struggle with, and it's a challenge for me. Like I said, this channel is definitely not the channel of a guy who's figured it out. This channel is the channel of a guy who's still struggling and working on things and thinks that maybe somebody else could possibly partake in that journey and that struggle with me, because going through it with somebody is definitely going better than going through it alone, I know that's one thing I've talked to my girlfriend about a lot too. She just started a sit-up habit this morning. We've stacked, she wants to stack more habits and better physical habits on top of the running habit that we finally established, which I think is a great idea. She made it into my gratitude list this morning, as a matter of fact, for somebody who's always pushing herself. I appreciate that, because it pushes me and inspires me and makes me better. But she started a push-up habit this morning, and she started a sit-up habit this morning. Sit-ups aren't my bag. It's not something I enjoy doing. It's going to be something that, if and when I start doing them, I'm going to struggle with, and I'm going to have to push past. So instead, I did push-ups instead of sit-ups. But nonetheless, one of the things I wanted to do is talk about, well, I don't even know how I got on this subject. I just rambled into it. I could probably rewind and figure it out, but I'm not going to. But I will say that my girlfriend started to push a sit-up habit, and it caused me to want to stack. It motivated me to be better as well. I was talking about going through things together. The reason I started this podcast. I think when people take a journey together, you're more likely to stick with things. Community is a great motivator. Peer pressure from others who are on the journey with us and who are going through the same struggles as we are. Guys, I'm a 49-year-old guy who's been through a lot of mistakes and stupid things in my life. A lot of mistakes that I continue to make and that I made for too many years. If that's something you can relate to, then like I said, hop on board and we can go on this journey together. Because there's things that I figure out how to do better every day. And as I learn to do them better, I want to share them with other people that want to be better as well. Because maybe I'm one step ahead of you. And hopefully what I can find is a community of people who are one step ahead of me. Because I get online and social media accounts every day and see people who are way ahead of me. And they're the ones who inspire me. Alex Hormozy, Jay Shetty, Gary V. All those guys are so far ahead of Lewis Howes. Those guys are so far ahead of me. It's not funny. But they are all closer to where I want to be. None of them have the exact lifestyle of where I want to be. Jay Shetty's a great guy whose heart is full of love, but he addresses a different crowd than I do. I'm not interested in talking to those people, I don't think, right now. Lewis Howes has an amazing story. He sounds closer to where I've been as far as some of the struggles that he's gone through in his life. But I can tell you right now, a lot of his challenges and a lot of his struggles and a lot of his trauma come from sexual abuse, which he's talked openly about. And that's not something that I think I have, at least that I'm aware of. It may be suppressed, but it's never something I've addressed or faced or felt a pull to address or face. So I don't think that's something I have in my past. Pretty comfortable with that. But nonetheless, I have trauma in my past, which makes me be able to relate to Lewis Howes. He's a guy who's overcome a lot. He does a podcast called The School of Greatness. Again, if you haven't heard of him, he's an amazing inspiration because of some of the things that he's overcome to be able to get where he is and do what he's doing. But again, not the same story as me. Like I said, I'm sure I'm not going to have the same story as you people. There's not going to be anybody who has the same past as I do. I'm writing a book right now that is going to talk about some of the dark places I've been that, again, maybe some folks can relate to. But I can tell you right now, it's not something I'm going to talk about on video for a while because it is, I don't even know what to say about that. I'm just not ready to talk about on video yet. When I wrote it, I wrote the beginning of the book the other day. And when I say that, I started out by writing a timeline of my life that I'm still filling in. Filling in the timeline because that's something I've never done, is really stopped and remembered where I was at different places in my life when I was at different ages, because I think back vaguely about different parts of my life, but I don't think about how old I was, some of the things that I was going through, where I was when I was going through those things physically in my life. So that was the first exercise, is to create a timeline of my life. And if it's something you haven't done, whether you're writing a book or not, I would highly suggest it. It's been very therapeutic, incredibly therapeutic. But just creating that timeline and putting myself back into those places and realizing and remembering where I was at different points in my life. For instance, I didn't even realize that I was 2 years old when my parents got divorced. And that tells me something a lot right there. Because if you're 2 years old when your parents get divorced, what leads up to a divorce? Happy times? Probably not, right? I can only guess that the majority of those 2 years were turmoil, were anger, were fighting, a lot of yelling and screaming, a lot of silence, just uncomfortable, tense silences, a lot of stress and pressure and tenseness and negativity in the house, right? I mean, am I wrong? It has to be. 2 years before divorce, I've been divorced twice, folks. I know the tension that leads up to a divorce. And it isn't just for 2 days. It is for months and years before the divorce actually happens. Divorces don't happen overnight. So like I said, knowing that I was 2 years old when my parents got divorced tells me a lot about what the first 2 years of my life must have been like. And it does a lot of explaining in my life when I think about it, because just trying not to get emotional as I think about it, because like I said, I wrote the beginning of the book the other day, and it's funny because I wrote it sitting on the couch in the room with my child and my girlfriend, and it didn't bother me in the least bit because I wasn't in the scene when I was writing it, because I was writing parts of it here, parts of it there. I was just trying to remember and gather my thoughts. But when I shared with my girlfriend afterwards what I had written, start to finish, I couldn't get through it without crying. It was so emotional because it put me back in the moment, and it actually physically put me there. And being there again made me remember and feel all the pain that I felt at the time, you know. But again, okay to do in a controlled environment, in a therapeutic way. It's not bad to feel that pain if you're ready to work through it and deal with it. And by going through it in that timeline and facing it in a moment when I was ready to, very therapeutic. But so anyways, like I said, I've started by writing a timeline, and I wrote the first chapter, the intro, the opening of the book the other day. And what I decided to do is I started at my rock bottom place. You know, and by doing so, I came to another realization. Again, like I said, I'm learning, and it's so therapeutic throughout this process. Even if I never publish this book, which I hope to someday, but even if I never do, just the process of writing my life story has been so therapeutic. So again, it's something I'm suggesting to folks out there. If you've never thought about doing it, if you have no desire to do it for any other purpose, do it for this purpose, and that is for the therapeutic value of it. You can be your own therapist just by simply writing your story, writing your life story. When it, like I said, it forces you to face and remember things that I don't think most of us ever face and remember, because probably they're too painful. Or at least if you've had a traumatic childhood, like I am classifying mine as. Listen, I love my parents to death, both of them. And they loved both my sister and I. My mom loved all four of us. My stepdad, I'm sure, loved my sister and I, and certainly loved my two brothers in his own way. His love is something I have to grapple with. It's a little different because he doesn't show it in the same way. He's never said it, that's for sure. So my stepdad's relationship my relationship with my stepdad's a little different. It's a good one today. I love him dearly, and I respect him, and I have so much respect for the lessons that he taught me in life. But I'll say this for sure: my relationship with him is certainly more complicated, and some things that I have to express differently, I think. But there's my bag again. But so anyways, like I said, I don't know where I was going with this other than to tell you that, guys, I'm writing my life story, and that it's incredibly therapeutic if you haven't done it. But that's my commute. That is my trip to work. That is what I'm going to call my first podcast episode. Just a free flow thought process that, I don't know. Like I said, I don't think anybody's going to get anything out of. I will probably be the one who gets something out of it, because I'm going to go back and watch it and probably maybe get some ideas from it. But if nothing else, it's been a very therapeutic way of me spending my morning. It helps my brain get going. It helps get some thoughts off my chest, because I always have things that I want to spew and spout about. But like I said, the doubts have been creeping in lately, and I've been doing fewer videos because I've been thinking to myself, well, it's probably not very important. That video is too short to do. And I think by doing this, it's going to give me an outlet to do that. So, I don't know. Anyways, podcast episode number 1, guys. Love you. Corny AF. Peace.